Welcome back to Empowered K-12. I'm your host, Elena Pinkley, and you're listening to Voices of Impact, a series of conversations with leaders who are making a difference in education, wellness, and student experience. Today, I'm sitting down with Mike Garcia and Jorge Swigilsky. Jorge is the security manager at the International School of Panama, and he's been working with schools and communities for about 30 years now. Jorge, welcome to the show. Before we dive in, can you just tell us a little bit more about your background and how you and Mike first crossed paths?
Well, thanks for having me here. I've been working for almost 30 years now in security, specialized in security for schools, private schools, and communities. Uh, I met Mike through IST East last year. He was in one of the lectures that I went to. They were talking about the features of security in schools and in college. And they talk about the Partners Alliance for Safer Schools and the improvement in schools. So after they finish up giving the lecture, I approached Michael and said, I like what you're talking about. Uh, there's something we lack in Latin America. It's those structured guidance to work in security. Each school decides how they do their security, but we don't have a guideline to help us. So we started talking about what I think about security. He told me what he does in security, and we hit it off. And we have been talking since then on how to enrich the security for international schools and local schools in South America and what we can do for them.
Mike, hearing Jorge's experiences, what stood out to you from your perspective in the US?
It's interesting when you reach out, internationally and try to figure out, if what we're doing here, in the United States is applicable over there. And, there's of course the language barriers and things like that are obvious, but it's the cultural aspects and the approach to risk management. And Jorge's approach was full spectrum. Right, so the approach was one that said, "Hey, I I take, some mental health, behavioral intervention pieces and the school hardening and the emergency security operation planning, put them together, but all of it sits on a platform, right? And that platform, uh, has all of our ability to command, contain, control, and communicate district wide, right? So it was really interesting how the people and the facilities and the assets that we talked about that encompassed Jorge's organization, his educational learning environment was something that I was able to fit into and say, you know what? It's exactly what we're doing here in the United States. These are the little nuances and the differences, and that's what kind of got us together and put us on your show because it really is intriguing how it all does come together, but how Jorge makes it work, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
how it works for him.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the nuance, and that's why I'm particularly excited to talk about this because, we're all trying to solve similar issues, but we do things a different way based on the resources we have and different things in the communities. So I think it'll be a really beneficial conversation to teach, how we're able to manage school safety with different resources. Uh,
Mhm.
Jorge, what really jumped out at you when you moved between schools in Panama and schools in the US?
Well, the main difference here in Panama, it's a really safe place. It's a really safe country. So the school, the people in Panama and the schools, they don't have a security culture,
Mhm.
meaning that it's quiet. So nothing has been happening for the last 20 years. Nothing is going to happen. That's the way they think. But the last 4 years, things have been the criminally criminalistic aspect in Panama has been growing, and we have to take better measurements of protecting schools, and especially international schools where we have about 70% American students, and we have students from all over the world. mostly in my school, we have people from all of the embassies that come here in the school. So they are high value targets.
Mhm.
And not having security conscious in the school, you have to build it from the ground up. In the States, you have other issues that we do not confront here in Latin America, that it's our school shootings. That's
Mhm.
something that it's not, we haven't had a lot. So even though international schools try to practice and try to have drills for lockdowns, it's not common. But preparing for earthquakes, preparing for uh, criminal attempts or uprisings, that's something that is real in South America for us. We can have volcano eruptions, we can have ash falling out. So those practices in places like Ecuador, eh, those are real. So that those are part of you. Having risks that involve the criminal aspect, not the normal school aspect, make you see things differently.
Mhm.
And in the States, uh, well, in the United States, first you have most schools have a district that is in charge of the school. So they have someone that is in charge telling them, okay, you have to follow this lead. And you have a lot of these alliances to help you grow in security. In South America, we don't have a lot of guidance in that way. So we have to do it on our own. And sometimes you see that public schools in South America, they don't have any security. Maybe a little bit of police escorts during at the beginning of the school year. They will have help from the police station with some police officers around the school, but they don't have a plan. Or the only plan they have is, okay, this country has a lot of earthquakes, so you have to have drills and a safety plan for drills. That's it, and they will make it. That's the security plan, and the only thing that you have to present to the Ministry of Education is, this is my earthquake planning, and that's it. But
Mhm.
the private schools, well, we have other issues that the public schools do not have. That is, we have high risk targets. So we see things a little bit different. So we try to protect them and protect the routes of the buses and how the kids come to school and how they leave the school. Because for us, the school is quite a safe place. So one of our main issues is when the students are outside the school, either coming to classes or getting back to their houses.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you mentioned depending on the school or whether it's a private school or a public school, it seems like they're dealing with different threats, especially depending on their cultural background or their religions. In the US, we do deal with things like school shootings and substance abuse, but it's just crazy to think that little kids are targeted for things like their culture and religion.
Yeah, and that's what makes I love what he said because he really does know that, it doesn't stop at the perimeter of the school. It goes into,
Mhm.
the community, it goes into the city, and that makes the risk assessment so much more necessary, right? And Jorge and I talked about those risk assessments and before implementing solution one, right? Which is your foundational security components, usually your access control, your video surveillance, your alarm management, your PA systems, so everybody can be on the same sheet of music, right? Those
Mhm.
foundational security components is what Jorge was looking to modernize in his school. And that's why he came to ISC East to New York. That's how we got together because he was looking forward. He says, I already have what I need. It's just good, but it's not good enough to protect my high value assets. And that
Mhm.
was commendable. I was like, you know what? You base your assets, your risk around the value of the asset, right? So, so the threats times the vulnerabilities times the value of the assets you're protecting is a formula for risk. The interesting part about what Jorge says is the environmental risk, right? So a lot of people don't think about that. They're looking at the threat within. They're looking at the mental health aspect, the home plus the school and figuring that out, and then looking at the external factors, right? The like he said, the criminal piece, but the
Mhm.
environmental risk is so critical to making everyone feel safe because they want to know that they're safe during one of these acts of God, right? One of these
Mhm.
environmental episodes. But also, when you design the school, you want to make sure that the school has the right design in place. Here's an example of risk. If you make your MDF and your IDF rooms on the bottom floor, and you have a two-story building, and on top of those rooms, which are critical because they have all of your command and control components in there, and your electrical components, and there's a bathroom on top, right? What happens when a kid takes his shirt, puts it in the toilet, and starts flushing it, right? You have an overflow, you have water, and it goes straight down. Right. So those are some of the risks that you don't think about, the design of the school, the environmental risks. And my hat's off to Jorge for, understanding that piece of risk and the risk
Yeah.
equation.
I mean, it's something I tend to forget about. Some people deal with tsunamis and earthquakes and all kinds of things. I'm from the Midwest, so we didn't really have much except for a tornado watch here and there. But it's just crazy to think about all of those different factors that come into play when it comes to school safety.
Yeah, and other factor that change between private schools, public schools here in South America, it's the budget that you have to implement things. So you have to get creative, and especially when I work with nonprofit schools or community schools, the budget is limited, and you have to choose between buying a good enough CCTV system because you don't have the budget to buy the best CCTV system. And use the budget that you have to train personnel better. So most of the security that I've done in South America, it's training the Department of Security to and teachers and students to get involved in security.
Mhm.
So that way, I use my budget to create the security culture within the school, involving teachers, involving especially the students in developing the security of the school. Because again, they are my assets. I do
Mhm.
not protect computers. I do not protect, uh, I don't know, TVs. I do not protect things. We protect kids.
Mhm.
We work in security, especially with the people that work in school security.
Yeah.
We do not care if a computer gets stolen. That's the reality of it. Okay, it's
Yeah.
part of our job to see that it doesn't happen, but my real job is to see that every kid comes to school, has a nice day in the school, and he arrives to his house safe. That's
Mhm.
my job. That's what we have to do. So here in ISP, we are starting developing the student brigade for emergencies and involving the student voice, that is the group that represents all of the students in the school. We're involving them in developing the new security protocols for the school.
Mhm.
So it's not security imposing, it's bringing them in, telling them, you know what, this is your school. We want you to
Mhm.
be part of it. We want you to understand that we care for you and we want to keep you safe, but we need your help because you know what affects you. So tell me, what can we do to make the security for you better? What can we do to make you feel safe? Because safety is a feeling. Security is something you can build, but safety is a feeling that you have to give the people, parents, and the students in the school. And bringing them to work with us makes them feel safer.
Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that, I mean, that right there speaks to Jorge's dedication to all of this because when you go to the school and you see things in a risk assessment that aren't physical, that are more cultural, right, or climate driven. In other words, you go to the school and you see banners with their mascot on them, right, and the kids at the football game together enjoy. So what that says is, look, our mascot is the Bearcat, Bearcats protect bearcats. Let's protect each other, right?
Mhm.
And that right there is an unspoken. And then you combine that with the fact that he understands that the budget is so very important, and it's not, hey, here's what we need, give me the money. It's, you have to be a good salesperson underneath all of this too. It's just it's a piece of the school security director puzzle. You have to sell
Yep.
your board. You have to sell your the people who fund these
Yes.
initiatives on this, and to do that, you have to know what products exist out there. Um, the products you position to replace human efforts with technical advances, not replace humans, replace human efforts and their force multipliers, right? So if you have, example, in the United States, we have a police force, right? So our police force has 20 police officers, and you put 50 cameras in a school campus. Well, that force multiplier allows them to be in 50 places at one time, right? And with your central point of command and control, which Jorge has as well, now you're able to see it. The visualization increases with every camera that you put up in the right spot, and your access control system is fit for purpose. So you're able to see something and click a button and do something, and then
Mhm.
dispatch the proper authorities to respond accordingly. It doesn't have to be a school shooting. It could be a fight, right? It could be a slip and fall. It could be a bunch of bricks next to a tree that the construction workers left there that the students might get hurt on the playground if they go next to. There's so many things that you do. And that's the interesting part is in some schools you protect the kids from the outside, like Jorge was talking about. And in some schools you protect the outside from the kids because
Mhm.
that's how that works, right? Very, very, very cool. I like hearing this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and well, technology it's a tool that you have to learn how to use, and will help a lot. But and I was talking to Mike in New York about this. eh, We bought a really nice PA system for the school before I arrived to this school, and it was a nice system, very really good system. But it was built and created for the United States construction system, meaning walls that you can punch your way through, not concrete walls that we have here in Panama.
Mhm.
So the issue we had is they bought a really good technology that didn't work
Yep.
Yeah, not
because
fit
the
for purpose.
communications didn't pass through the concrete walls. And now we're trying to fix it so it works because it was a really big investment and you cannot throw that away, but you need to fix it so it will work.
Mhm.
So and talking with that really professional people that I met in ISC, that they know what they're talking about, and telling them the issue that I have when I have to invest in technology is that it needs to be specially designed for work in places like Panama, when you have heat, humidity. Most of the schools will receive this information from a salesperson that, in order to make a big sale, will tell them, "Oh, that's the top of the line.
Yep.
That's what
Yeah.
you need," and you will spend a lot of money that schools need in buying some equipment that will not work effectively. So one of the reason that I went to New York is because I wanted to see for myself what was in the market,
Mm.
what was
Yeah.
what things will make it better that I know that will work in Panama. So investing in cameras and help you find issues, video recording, it will work. It doesn't matter where you are. So
Yeah.
it's humid here. That won't affect the artificial intelligence. It will work anyway. I hope prices go down in a few years because it's
Yeah.
expensive, especially for the operative cost of our budget. But it's a great tool, and it will work, and it will help you not having a security person
Oh,
standing all day looking at videos, looking for a kid that disappeared half an hour before the classes, and we know it's inside the school, so we know he's safe. For some reason, he hasn't arrived to his classes.
yeah.
So we have to backtrack all the watching that he did since he entered the school to see where he is. And that will take about 40 minutes. That to finding a kid 40 minutes is too much. With the artificial intelligence now, you just said, I need to find a kid with a black backpack, a red hat on, and you will have images in seconds. That's a tool.
Yeah.
That will help. As Michael said, it won't replace the security personnel in my school, but it will help them get to the kid faster.
Yeah. And
Those are the things that I'm completely pro to install in our school and in any school, and find a way that for public schools, these tools can be either subsidized by the country, by the Ministry of Education of each country, or make a plan like the wealthier schools adopt a public school and help them with the security.
Mhm.
So that's something that will break the bridge of having public schools with no safety at all to having something that would help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what he just said is so important to understand, not only in at that level that he's working at, but when he gets into a room with the administrators, with the superintendents, the principals, the people that are outside of safety and security in charge of education and educating the students, right? And you have to be able to speak the same language, but speak it in a way that they understand and associate it to learning, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you have this thing in school called a multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, right?
Yep.
We have the same thing for safety and security. We just don't call it that. And it's not
Yeah.
the words are different. And I've noticed when you're doing what Jorge is doing at the schools, you in the United States, and especially in public schools, you have to take that nomenclature, those words, and you have to associate them and you have to use them, the data driven, type functions that are in the schools. What I would say is tied to that is fidelity testing. Jorge's using his technology to replace human efforts to do more for his school with the people that he currently has. The fidelity testing is so important because whatever you implement, you test to failure. You want to know what makes it fail. You want to test it until it can't. And that is such an important piece, coupled with vendor risk management. That's what I call it. So what is vendor risk management? It's the people in the purchasing capacity of that school falling for some of these things that Jorge was talking about, these things that really don't belong in a school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they do after you have all the foundational components in place and you've gone through your tiers and you're on the final tier and you get a grant and you're looking for something to add to that Lego set, right? When you understand the vendor, how long they've been in business, show me some projects that you've worked on to success, and then show me something that says you're going to be here for the long haul and your technology is good already. I already know that, but I want to look under the hood and I want to see that eliminates the risk of you having your vendor sell or go bankrupt or go public. Those types of things change
Mm-hmm.
the entire support system from that product, right? So Jorge's going to be sitting here almost like a conductor in an orchestra. And he's going to be conducting the access control, the video surveillance, the alarm management, the elevator all of these different things that are part of his uh, part of his infrastructure, his security infrastructure. It is a very hard job. And preparation is key. Like he said, you have to be prepared. Even if you're an outfielder out there in the right field waiting, you have the best seat in the house, but when that ball gets hit to you, you have to be prepared to go catch it. It's kind of that same concept. Jorge and his team have to be prepared to uh, for an event and for something, God forbid, to happen that they might have to respond to and call additional personnel onto the school to respond to. So that personnel needs to know the school beforehand.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, you brought up a really good point about vendor risk management because we see things in the media, a vendor, something happens, and then that vendor is no longer in business and the school is scrambling trying to figure out what to do. And one of the main things I've noticed specifically in school safety that kind of breaks my heart is the fear-based selling. I think, I just don't think that's the way you can really go about things in education because these tragedies impact these communities so heavily.
He has another something else to deal with, which is the government, right? The changes in the government. We do it, but it's a lot slower. The government's changing right now. Safety and security is now going into, I think, HHS, Health and Human Services, right? From education, from the Department of Education and Health and Human Services, there's changes going everywhere. So we need to adopt, but it's a lot slower, right? We have a bigger, government here. In different Latin American countries, it could change overnight sometimes. So you got to be prepared for that too, right? They may come in and
Mhm.
they may take all your money. They may take all your funding. They may take all your personnel. You never know. So those are some of the things you really have to almost be ahead of the curve from that aspect and say, you know what, I'm going to have a disaster and contingency plan in place for all of these things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and part of the plan, and sometimes it gets missed, and they do not have the plan for it. Is how to get back to normality after
Oh,
an emergency.
yep. Yep.
So how you come back and how you return to normal, making the kids feel safe again in the school, how to start working again as normal and better than before, and working with the teachers, working with the psychology department, working even with therapists to help get back to normality. Because tragedy could happen in any place. But the way you confront it and the way you start coming back to normality will make you change the way that the kids feel in the school. So if you
Mhm.
keep telling them, this happened and it was sad, and we have to remember every day that this happened here and it's sad, and okay, it happened. Let's move on. Let's work to make things better so it won't happen again and make you feel normal again.
Mhm.
It, when schools closed during the COVID here in
Yeah.
Panama, and we had virtual classes for the students. After we opened the classes, the kids coming back had new issues that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of kids with depression. That's something that we didn't see before the COVID. We had a lot of kids with a lot of anxiety coming back to school because they were for a year alone in their houses. And at the beginning, it took us a while as schools to understand that things have changed a lot, and we needed to work with those kids to help them realize that okay, it's going to take us time, but we're back to normality now, and we want you to feel normal again.
Mhm.
And that was a worldwide emergency. When you have a local emergency, it's the same. You need to be prepared and need to have a plan to go back to reality, to normality.
Is Right, he nailed it. Jorge knocked it out of the park with this one. We couldn't prepare. We were flying an airplane with no flying lessons, right? We were
Yeah.
we were up, and what I did to help the schools was, my employer didn't allow us to travel at all. They were like, you know what, we're shutting this down. You're staying home, just like the government said you need to do, and you're, working from home. And I used all of my Marriott points and all of my United miles and all of my Avis points. And I went out there and I helped them in finding, gear, masks and sanitizers and all of these things. It was so hard to find in the United States. I'm sure it was the same everywhere. But I'm sitting here making deals and finding things for them and then going and delivering it to them. And what I found was that the role of the school nurse changed dramatically after COVID, right? With the vaccinations, the vaccines that they were giving, with all of the things that they were doing to work with the custodial crew to make sure they're cleaning everything the right way, using the right disinfectants. Who understood things after COVID that you'd never seen before in your life. Like, okay, it was a viral pandemic, yes, but it was also a mental health pandemic because of what Jorge just said. The anxiety, the depression. There's a fine line between suicide and homicide, right? And right around that time, we had Uvalde, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I read about 5 or 6 years ago that in a school shooting situation, they increase the percentage of the probability of a school shooting increases after a long break. This was before COVID. After a Christmas break, after a summer break, because they've been at home a long time, right? We don't know what their home life is like, and home plus school is that silver bullet.
Yeah.
They really didn't get it. It was a long time away. So COVID was like Jorge said, was a year and a half out of the classroom, right? So we come back and here's Uvalde. Here's some of it was the worst year for school shootings ever, right? Because you saw things like delayed grieving, right? What's that? What's delayed grieving? Well, these kids lived with their grandma. They really loved their aunts and their uncles. They passed away during COVID. And so that right there opened up an entirely different mental health pandemic that said, what's generational trauma? I've never heard of that before, right? So we really have to be cognizant about the social emotional learning aspects of schools in the different countries, right? Because being in a different country, they approach it different. The Latin American countries have a very strong family infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
They're very resilient by nature, right? But sometimes, we have to understand that they do need help to make sure that that resiliency stays intact.
You're absolutely right. After COVID, I think we just started noticing all of these other mental health things that we didn't really pay attention to before, but it's kind of like COVID pulled a veil off. And that's when you could really see these behaviors coming out. And that's where we talked about generational trauma. And that kind of leads into our next question, Jorge. How do student behaviors in Panama, compare to what we typically see in the US? Because I know you mentioned mental health things, but what do the behaviors look like in the schools?
Teenagers are teenagers anywhere in the world. And remember, in my school, I have more than 60% of kids that are American, that are from the US, so are the same. Kids in Quito, Ecuador, tend to be more polite because the people in Quito are really polite when they talk.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Panama, kids are they talk more loosely than in Ecuador. So they're kids. They're gonna be similarities around the world. Our job, part of working security in a school, is to help them be kids. So the school work is to teach. Our school as security is make the school able to teach and let the kids be kids. That's
Mm-hmm.
our job, to keep things normal so the school can do their job and the kids can learn and can be kids. And I always said that I don't think you have bad kids. And when you have increasing cases of bullying and cases of abuse from kids to kids in the school, I always say it's the school that is failing the kid. It's not the kid that is failing in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to find those kids that are showing you this cries for help when they're young, and you have to guide them to be part of something bigger, be part of the change, be part of the school. Try to break the circle of I was bullied when I was a kid, so I will bully someone when I'm bigger. And it's a really difficult situation because it varies. But if you see schools in Panama, in Ecuador, in Argentina, in Chile, and in the States, you will see the same issues with the kids. How can we help as security to stop these cycles and to help these kids grow out of it? Part of what we do is grab these kids that have disciplinary problems and embarking them as being part of the security brigade so they have a voice, they feel appreciated, and we teach them how helping another, it's better than bullying another kid. So you have to protect the ones that cannot protect themselves. That's why we try to give the kids in our schools.
Absolutely. 100%. And I it's not just Jorge saying it or me saying it.
We'll
It's
pause for a minute. We
yeah.
can pause for the dog. The good thing we have editing nowadays.
Yeah.
The dogs always do that. They at the worst times. So
I know, I get it.
yeah, let me start over. Hold on. Let me shut them. Jorge is absolutely spot on. In fact, there's data to back it up, right? You look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Maslow's needs hierarchy says next to your 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 basic needs, right? Eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing, your basic needs. Safety is right next to it, right? The next basic need is safety. When a child and the teachers feel safe, they learn more. They love more. They make friends. They have more self-confidence, more self-esteem. It just makes complete sense. And what Jorge said in including the kids in the safety and security plan, including the kids in your decisions to do this. What I do is I take no different in the US, right? I take a map of the school and I'll during the safety committee, I'll say, hey, we need to involve some kids in the safety committee. Bring me your three most outspoken safe and healthy schools advocates here in this school, students. They'll bring them in. I'll hand them a map. With that map, I'll give them a red pen and a blue pen, and I'll say, look, with this red pen, show me where you will not go in the school campus. With the blue pen, show me where you hang out, where you feel safe. And they'll
Mm,
automatically start marking that map. I'll
that's awesome.
take the map and I'll look at it and I'll say, why won't you go here? Well, that's where Fred hangs out. Really? Who's Fred? Well, he's one of the big bullies in school. He'll take your Jordans off your feet. He'll open your backpack and see what's in there to eat. Those are harsh realities that happen in the schools, right? And those are the types of things that we don't understand doing our job head down, wondering where to put the next camera, wondering what kind of access control we should install in the athletic fields. It's completely different. So, you know, you can't do it yourself, even though you have to do it yourself sometimes. It really does take guts to run a safety and security program in schools. It does. You're fighting, you put your gloves on in the morning and you're just punching away all day. You need help. And that's why when Jorge talks about the Partner Alliance for Safer Schools, past K-12, right? The North Star that you point to for safety and security to see if you're doing everything right, what tier you're on, the layers of security that go all the way up to protecting the assets in your classroom, your students. It makes so much sense to go out there and look for the help from the proven organizations, right? And that's what
Mhm.
Jorge did. He's talking about past K-12, zeronow.org, the National Council for School Safety Directors. All of those organizations are eventually coming up into the ASIS school safety regulations for schools that are going to be the code, right? It's almost like ANSI code, and those codes are coming. Right. We're going to have to comply with those mandates in schools in the United States. It's going to take a while for them to get to Latin America if they ever get there. But Jorge's already taken the initiative to come in, find out what's working, and take that into his country and make his schools safer all the way around.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I'd actually love to hear from both of you on this. What gives you hope when it comes to the future of student safety?
What gives me hope? Well, for me, especially, is after 30 years, having kids that were the first kids that work with me coming back to me and telling me, you know what, uh, I love working with you when I was at the school. I love being part of your security team, and I want to study to help more people. That's what gives me hope. Seeing kids learning and trying to and understanding that they can help others.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Again, for me, you don't have bad kids. All
Yeah,
kids are good. You just need help to learn how
absolutely.
to reach them.
I agree.
That is absolutely correct. We fail the students.
Yeah.
That's not in their DNA. They don't have that cognitive, understanding of how to fail us. They're just living their lives, and children learn what they live, right? A lot of the things they see at
Yeah,
home, they bring to school. We don't know what's going on at home many times if we don't have any school social workers, which is almost a luxury, and it's a necessity, but it's a luxury to some schools. But what brings me hope is that the school boards and the superintendents are finally understanding that they need to take a major role in school safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Treat safety and security as if it were a major governance event, like building a new school, buying new buses, right? Those major events. It is a major event. It's the most major event for the most critical infrastructure, protecting our kids and our teachers and our learning environments, right?
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things I've noticed that gives me hope for school safety is just seeing all of the partnerships that have been coming together, specifically over the last couple of years. Um, I've just seen so many people taking initiative that some of them aren't even involved in education. Some of them have completely different titles, but they're very interested in how they can better support students. Because at the end of the day, if the students don't feel safe, the learning isn't going to matter. They're going to be worried and anxious about what's going to happen at school today. They're not going to be paying attention, and everyone's just going to not feel safe there. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Long way to go. We have a long,
yeah,
a long road to hoe, but it's getting a lot better. And I'm excited. I'm excited for what to see. And this podcast proves it. We're we're
mhm,
reaching out, right? And we're reaching out. We're really trying to learn leading practices in how to secure our teachers, facilities, and assets and students. So
mhm, absolutely. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be here and just for the work you're doing in school safety. I think it's going to be so beneficial for leaders both from Panama and the US to listen to this episode and get some insights and how we can better support our students. So I appreciate it. To everyone tuning in, thank you for being a part of this community. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future conversations with leaders shaping education. This is Empowered K-12. I'm Alina Pinkley, and this has been Voices of Impact.